We're going to cover the main areas are how gaming is crushing Hollywood, entertainment and cultural value, the opportunities of original content, and how you can make your own fortune with one of the fastest growing sectors being gaming. Today's moderator of the panel is Marion, who is to my right, your left, and he is the CEO of the Boerne Group. So before we get started, why don't we give him a strong round of applause and see if we can wake you guys up in the audience. Mark, take it from here.
Good morning. I have the pleasure of sitting next to three individuals who are very accomplished executives in the gaming industry. And before we get started, I'd like to hand off and have each one of them identify themselves and tell you a little bit about their background.
My name is James Vallord-Costa, and I was the CEO of Hypernia. I've got my brand new CEO sitting in almost the front row. Give him a round of applause. Imported him from Paris, because the best things come from there. I founded Hypernia 12 years ago with $5,000 and millions of dollars later and a lot of happy gamers around the world. We are where we are today, and the idea, and I just saw this great speech by the Buttercoin guy next door, and that's how I basically explain what Hypernia is. We've created the Uber of the hosting world, and we've created the Uber of the content management world. We finished that last mile between the gamer and the actual content creators and the infrastructure that runs it. And we do it for really good prices.
Hi, I'm John Schappert. I'm CEO of Shiver Entertainment. I'm a Miami native. I was born here, raised here, went to public school here, and then spent some time in California and then moved up north to Orlando where I started a development company called Tiburon Entertainment. And they're still around 20 years later today. They're owned by Electronic Arts and they make the Madden series of games. And then I was most recently COO of Electronic Arts and most recently COO of Zynga. But now I'm here with Shiver Entertainment. We're focused on creating the world's best free-to-play games, and we're located right in South Miami. I'm looking for great people to help us on our endeavor.
My name is Mike Acton. I'm the engine director at Insomniac Games. We mostly concentrate on our core console titles. And I've been making games for about 19 years, and throughout that, focused on technology, engine development, the sort of the core base of how to make those large-scale AAA console experiences.
Great. So as you can see, I've got some very accomplished executives sitting here next to me. One of the things that's really interesting to me is that if you take a look at this industry over the last 20 years, I think it's very clear that it's made a transition from being a cottage industry that sold to a few niche customers to really being a full-fledged member of the media and entertainment space. Now let me give you a little context to put around that. In 2013, the motion picture industry generated $36 billion. In the same year, the video games industry generated $93 billion, which represents a 17% year-over-year growth. And the projections is that by 2017, the industry will reach revenues of somewhere around $111 billion. So you can see it's an incredibly big and a fast-growing industry. So my question to you guys is, what are the market forces behind this incredible growth, and what do you find interesting about those dynamics that are contributing towards this growth?
Let's start the opposite way.
Well, I like to say that movie is just a degenerate game. Just press one button to get the experience. But I mean, I think that games are a part of everybody's lives and growing up, right? And it's not just video gaming as we know it, but games, right? That's how we learn, as we play. And I think that's how a lot of animals learn, right? Not just humans, but that's how we learn. And I think sort of that, recognizing that and bringing that into our world, and that the world that we create as human beings is a natural thing. And I think that we're starting to see that development, right? How do we make games part of our daily lives as not just kids, but as adults? And how do we learn that way? And how do we express ourselves that way? And recognizing that that's sort of a true medium and a true form of expression has been led part of the growth. Not just the obvious things like the ability to make things on new platforms and mobile and stuff like that, but just this overriding cultural shift, I think, has been part of the change.
Interesting.
I think people love entertainment, and I think when you dig into entertainment, games are the fastest growing segment of entertainment, as you mentioned, and specifically what I think is happening right now is it's like a renaissance in gaming, because you don't have to have an expensive console to enjoy your favorite games. We all have smartphones in our pockets, hopefully turned in airplane mode right now, and we can play games on them. We can play on our tablets. We can play on our PC. And guess what? Games aren't even $60 anymore. Some are. We still like our big blockbuster games. But guess what? Many of them are free. The vast majority of those released on the iPad and Android OS are free to play. And you can spend some money if you want to, but you don't have to. So they're more accessible than ever. There's more players than ever. There's more devices than ever. So there's never been a better time to kind of be a gamer or game maker, which is kind of exciting.
Well, I think there's a great song from Depeche Mode called A Question of Time. And as much as we want to say we've got no time for anything, trust me, I've traveled around the world. This bag was just in Vietnam, over 800 miles on a motorcycle. And I can't tell you how many adults and kids are just sitting there doing this all day. Everybody's got 15-minute intervals to do everything. And as John just said and Mike just mentioned, there's just so much time in between everything to actually occupy your mind. And so I think that's why it's just going crazy everywhere. And now the new markets, especially Latin America, is just blowing up like crazy because, let's be honest, Latin Americans like competition, and they're very good at it, and they are passionate players, So I think that's why it's just gone off the charts.
Well, I was going to ask you about Latin America. Latin America, I've discovered recently, is the second most heavily penetrated gaming market on Earth. What are the causes of that, and where do you see that going? What's interesting about that to you?
Well, I think it's like everything else. It's kind of like, do you guys remember Star Wars when Darth Maul just kind of sat there and they had the thing in between them? And he's just really upset and fuming, and then you had Qui-Gon on the other side just like meditating, awaiting. And that's kind of what's happened. Latin America and South America just kind of waited because it was just too darn expensive to do anything down there. Brazil hosting was crazy. It's just too hairy and too expensive. But now, because of all the technological innovations, the doors are wide open. And let me tell you, those people are hungry for this stuff. And they've got developers that want to make these games. They've plenty of audiences for these two guys to bring their games down there too. It's been a huge market for us. We brought Asian companies, we brought Smilegate and G4 Box down to Brazil to bring all their like Counter-Strike kind of games, etc. That's why.
John, what do you think?
I think what you see happening just across the world is the globalization of games. I mean, I think that's what's exciting to me is you can be located anywhere in the world and make games. You can be located anywhere and play games. You don't have to wait for the most part, for it to come to your geo. I mean, again, with the App Store and the Google Play Store, we can download the top game that our friends around the globe are playing. And if you look at the top games these days, it's not all, from California. There's games in there from Finland, from Sweden, from all over the world. So I'm excited about Latin America, but I'm actually more excited about the globalization of the industry in general. Mm-hmm.
Globalization, I think, is interesting because I think something interesting, especially over looking at small developers over the last 5 years, is you've seen the shift from, should I globalize, should I localize, to the question being, if you're not doing it, why aren't you doing it? And I think that's been an interesting shift. But to speak to Latin America in particular, South America in particular, I think that the most interesting thing to me is the sort of growth of the developing world, of developers reaching out to other developers. I'm hearing a lot more from local developers in South America talking to me on Twitter and other North American developers on Twitter, sort of building up this global developer base. And that's been really fascinating to see and really interesting to be a part of. That it's not just this closed off local environment. So,
in my career, my past career, I worked for a number of software companies, and the last one I worked for, we were doing quite a bit of outsourcing of development to Latin America because we found that there's quite a bit of skill in various markets there. Question I have for you, are you guys doing any of that outsourcing? Are you utilizing any of the creative or the developmental talent in Latin America to build your titles or to build your service platform?
I'll be honest, I tried India because it was a cool thing to do in China, and it's just, the language barrier is so powerful. I mean, so we resigned to made in America and also Europe. I think Europe's an unexploited territory. I think the people there, they're to their heart and glory, they have so much culture, but they're being choked to death by it, and there's not a whole lot of opportunities to make a lot of money. You take a few euros in Europe and you will get somebody with a PhD to work for you, and their English will be flawless, which is the language of business. So for our company, we really stuck with Europe and North America for us, because we have to have the 24-hour clock covered. But for development, you probably need different kind of expertise, I imagine.
We do. I mean, we prefer to have folks kind of close to each other for collaboration and just getting iteration and making the best games possible. That being said, there's also experts all over the world, and we work with them. And we're absolutely working with, we've got one person in Argentina as we speak, toiling away and helping us. And we also work with people in Asia as well. But it's a great talent base.
So I think it takes the right kind of person to make that work, right? We have one, I have one developer who's been working on our team in Brazil for about the last 6-7 years. But I can't, it's not a thing that I can scale up. I can't just say, let's pile on all the Brazilian developers. It's this one guy who can make it work and who's really smart and can work as part of our team. And I think that but that is the exciting thing, that we can find, even if it's only, that 1% or the half of 1% of people that can make that work, we can find them, and we can talk to them, and they can know that there's an opportunity to work with other developers outside their region. So.
Mm-hmm. Now we started off talking about the overall growth of the market, and certainly it's very impressive. But when you take a look at it, there's a subtle share shift occurring right now. And we're seeing just white-hot growth in terms of mobile gaming. I think in 2013, mobile gaming generated $13 billion. It's estimated to double that by 2015. Obviously, app stores have had a lot to do with that. But one of the things I find interesting, and we were talking about this a few minutes ago, John, is that it appears that the app stores have democratized, if you will, game development. It certainly lowered the barrier to entry. Talk about what's happening with that. How have app stores democratized app development, and what does that portend for the future?
Well, I'll take a little stab. I think the great thing is it's easier than ever before to make a game. It's easier than ever before to get that game into the hands of players. I think the irony is, I think it's harder than ever before to make money as a game maker. There's 1 billion apps on Google Play. There's 1 billion apps on the App Store. There's 40,000 a day made. It's just some insane number that keeps going up. And I'd liken it to websites. Anyone can go and register their own domain. We can kind of use a website builder or kind of get hands-on and make our own website. How many of those websites that we could make could truly make money? And of course, that's the holy grail. So I think the same thing's happening. So the good news is we've got more innovation happening than ever before. We've got more games happening than ever before. We've got more people playing games because all of the folks making games are making games for everyone. But it's also harder, to be able to kind of overcome that hurdle and make some money in this industry. Whereas before, when it was, call it console dominated, just getting that dev kit so you can make a game for the Xbox or the PlayStation was difficult and expensive. Getting into Walmart and GameStop was even harder. And there were only a few hundred games released a year. So frankly, if you were one of those few hundred, you kind of had guaranteed distribution. Now you've got guaranteed distribution, but not guaranteed to get to anyone because it's hard to kind of rise above the fray.
So I think for me, this is a good thing all around. I mean, it's really exciting to see. I think on one hand, if you want to make games, you're compelled to make games, right? The opportunity is there. Like, even if you don't make money, right, you just want to make games. In the same way, if you want to write or you want to paint or you want to make music, anyone can do that. And the opportunity is there. If you want to make a living off of it, that's an entirely different question, right? But I think just like writing, just like painting, just like music, anyone can do it, but it's hard to make a living off of it, right? It's hard to be a professional musician. It's hard to be a professional author. But that's fine. Like, I mean, the ideal is that the cream rises to the cream rises to the top. That's the ideal, right? And I think that's what we're hoping for in the games industry as well, right? The best will show.
Well, just to borrow the word that we're all saying all week, which is emerge, that's kind of a strategy that we've taken, with the Uber, the SuperPod that we have, and the Spartan. It's about merging lots of different groups of people, whether they're IBM or Digital Realty Trust, all these big companies that don't technically function very well together, and getting them to work together. I think it's the same thing. One of our clients is called Crytek. They're based out of Germany. It's 3 Turkish brothers, and they're just like these 2 guys here. They're just super passionate about their games, sometimes crazy. But what they've done is they've built a portal, just like Mark mentioned, that's similar to Valve Software Steam, and it allows access. It allows access developers to be able to get, like you said, affordable or free code to be able to make these games, and a platform to bring it out to the world. My challenge, and what I would suggest that they do the next thing, is the final bridge. You got the old stalwarts, the big dinosaurs of industry, the ABC televisions, the Univisions, the people with millions of eyeballs. They just have no content. I think the next evolution, emerge, would be to have all the eyeball corrallers, which are these big network television companies, to work with the Johns and the Mikes and to partner up. So then you, like you say, you rise to the cream of the crop. Well, that's kind of, you're going to cut your ear off like Van Ho, right? Or you can do some partnerships and work with people you don't like, which is the business suit guys. So you put the artists and you put the business suit to guys, and make some babies together. And then you're going to make a ton of money. And there's a guy sitting right in the middle there named Pierre, and he actually built the application that actually does that every single year. And if you guys did the meeting invites, his company does that. It introduces the sharky business folks with the lovely little artists, and together, that's when it really happens.
So it's time for a buzzword, gamification. It's obvious that gaming has grown outside of the entertainment space, but to what degree is this a real force and a source of growth in the industry? I know that in association with Emerge and working in helping to develop the educational track and the healthcare track, this had come up time and time again, how games are being used for purposes other than entertainment. How much of a force is that? How much of a source of growth is that? And is that a sustainable source of growth? And to add in even another question, are any of your development portfolios targeted towards applications that are outside of the pure entertainment space?
I think Mike said a funny joke. I mean, he basically said, what did you say? It was retarded movies? Or downgraded movies or something?
Yeah, degenerate. Movies are degenerate games.
Yeah, degenerate games. That's basically the key there. Ralph McNamara, who opened this thing up, he's one of our business leaders here in Florida. He told me yesterday that every single panel that they had up here, whether they're talking about stethoscopes or other horrendously boring things, all had to mention the word gaming at some point. Because, like Mike said, that's how we learn as kids. So if you make it fun, they're going to learn. I mentored a kid yesterday, or I wouldn't call him a kid, he was 35. But this guy's like, listen, I'm making apps and I'm doing this thing. And I'm like, I got a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old here on Key Biscayne. And I can't get them to want to speak French and Spanish. They understand everything, but they refuse. But if you were to make an app that made it hilariously funny, screwing around with some character on the screen that would engage them and talk with them, they would do it. So that's in the education world and all across the board. I think that would be amazing. And for our wallets too, and yours too, as soon as you get involved in our business.
I think people want entertainment, so that's what we're focused on first and foremost. I think that it's always great if you can kind of combine a couple genres, and I think my hat's off to Nintendo, who I think did it better than anyone I've seen to date with the Wii Fit accessory that Mr. Miyamoto made a few years ago for the Wii, and it certainly hit the world like fire, and I think was spawned by his own sense of staying in shape, and I think he spurred the world on, so more of that would be good, but we are focused on making great games, and thanks for inviting us to Emerge. We haven't shouted out to Mark and the Emerge crew, but James did. So I just, nice sponsors, great Herman Miller chairs, bringing everyone together. I like the swoop chair, and it makes me, who's not as in shape as I should be, feel comfortable here.
How about a applause over that one, huh?
These chairs are very comfortable.
Herman Miller makes good chairs.
It's not an ad, but I think that. Sorry, I lost
Healthcare.
I lost my train of thought.
Healthcare.
Oh,
games,
gamification.
Gamification.
So one, I don't really like the word gamification. I mean, I think that's something that's gone both, it's sort of hit its peak already and sort of started to come down. But I think this really is truly something to the idea of games being a sort of a fundamental way of our ability to learn and communicate. There's something real to that. And I think that we're starting to see that. We're starting to see people understand that. I think there's also something really superficial about the way that people are applying that idea, right? That they're taking, ostensibly taking what has worked for games and applying it to their things, and we'll see things like, oh, I'm giving you points and I'm giving you badges and that's gamification, right? No, that's just crap, is what that is. But I think because we're starting to see people really take this concept of I can learn and it can be fun and it can be interesting and I can do it in a way that's very new and different, I think that we will start to see much more interesting things looking into the next 5 or 10 years. From our point of view, I think that entertainment is our space. And I think that that pure space of entertainment will continue to be our space. But yeah, I think there's a future for it.
There's been a lot of talk in Emerge across all of the summits about ecosystems. And the aspiration of Emerge is to help create a vibrant technology ecosystem in South Florida. In terms of gaming, how are we doing in terms of building that ecosystem? I mean, 2 of you gentlemen have established your companies locally. Mike, you're out in Burbank. But at what stage are we really in terms of ecosystem? And how does that really benefit you and your companies and your growth? And how does that help you attain your objectives?
Well, I arrived here when I was about 22, 23 years old, and I didn't like people very much. So I said, listen, I'm going to go where the weather and the water is, because I was raised in Oregon where it rains every single day. So I had major depression. So I came here, and I'm just a happy guy now. So we have major assets just in terms of natural resources. It's a city that isn't overly developed like Los Angeles. I mean, that city is played out. Sorry. San Francisco is even worse. I mean, half of the city's fantastic. The other one is just like The Walking Dead. You know what I mean? So I think Miami is just about to blossom right now. It's beautiful. This guy's the muscle in the town here. I mean, he and Manny Medina and Diane Sanchez have transformed the landscape of this whole city where people are looking to us as the leaders of the future. And what I will say about the Latin population, there's a lot of heart. And that's really what connects with the world. It just kind of migrates around, different parts of the world where it's going to be. And I think it's right here. The city is just primed for it. And we got the people with the passion and the connection to family, which I think a lot of Americans have kind of lost, chasing the dollar. This is where that's at. And it will attract people. And what John told me a long time ago is he likes coming here because his family's here. But he wants to hire people that have connections here as well, because once you start putting the seeds into place, it starts to grow a real fertile flower, And I think that's what we have here. And it really starts with the basics, which is weather and water.
James is always fun to follow, and he says it so well, but I think he's spot on right. I mean, I think that you and Diane, Mark, have put together a great conference. I think you're highlighting what's special about Miami, and I think what's great about Miami is it is still a relatively low cost to live, Florida as a state is, and a high quality of life. And the reality is our industry here in gaming is still very early. Just a handful of companies, relatively small, but you know what? I've been there, seen that before. So 20 years ago in Orlando, Florida, we started a company and it was 3 people. Almost exactly 20 years ago, and it's 850 people today. And now, by the way, when you look at upstarts in Orlando, there's probably 20 plus little, upstart developers. I'm not going to say they all came from Tiburon, but I'm sure that had a big part to do with it, partnered with the university. So now you're looking at Orlando as frankly a hub of gaming. EA's second largest studio worldwide is in Orlando, Florida. I went to Vancouver. I spent 5 years in Vancouver where my son was born. And EA had a studio there, and we grew it from 500 people to 1,400 people. Vancouver is now a major hub for gaming, and there's a bunch of development studios there. We're still early days in Miami, and so, we're just a small little company ourselves, but we've got big aspirations, and there's other folks here too, Dark Side Games, Skyjoy, and we hope that they all do well and grow, and I hope that everyone that comes here realizes Miami has an awful lot to offer, and it's a great place to live. and
You're
to
the
start
lucky
your own
charm,
company.
buddy.
I don't know about that, but I've got a nice chair I'm sitting in today.
Well, first, I dispute James's characterization of California.
I knew you would say that.
But I mean, I think I think for me, it's seeing an event like this, and being able to see sort of what the plans are for a region like Miami, and is the thing that makes it more interesting and attractive, right? You sort of can see how an area wants to develop and what its interests are. I think that helps to put it on the map, right? I mean, that helps me personally be aware of what's going on here. And hearing from developers that were already there, right? Those sort of early adopters of a region. We've worked with Darkside Games, for example, and sort of hearing their experience with the region and hearing from other developers here at the conference. So, that's what makes it, for me, compelling and interesting.
These guys sitting next to me are incredible. Not only have they accomplished a lot personally, but their knowledge of the industry and their knowledge of the key players in the industry is very, very impressive. I went out to the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco recently, and I tapped a couple of these gentlemen on the shoulder, asking them to network me with people that I should know. And I just tell you, I was sitting down meeting with the captains of industry just based on their introductions. So to that end, one of the things we have a section of the expo floor that's called Games of the Emerging Americas, and it has a lot of moving parts to it. But one of the parts is something called mentor meetups. And what we did was we reached out to the local universities and asked that the department heads refer students to come to be mentored by executives such as these. And each one of them gladly devoted their time and is willing to devote their time to sit down and talk for 30 minutes to each one of these students. So what I'd like to ask you guys is, in general, knowing what you know about the gaming industry, what general advice do you give? I mean, the sessions you're going to have today are going to be very specific, but generally, what kind of advice and counsel do you give to people that are looking to enter the gaming industry? What are the real opportunities, and then what are the challenges?
Start, Mike.
Okay. I think that the best piece of sort of beginning advice, it comes from the best piece of media training advice that I ever got, which is that you don't need to answer the question that you were asked. And I think that, as far as that applies as a life lesson, right? I mean, you take it and you make of it what you will. Right? And I think that's important, as you're starting out, to know that you don't have to follow in the footsteps of everybody that came before you. You don't have to do it like, the AAA studios. You don't have to look toward them and say, I want to do it like they did it. You make the space your own, and I think the opportunities to do that and the opportunities to sort of forge your own path are there. And I think that's the best piece of advice that I can give somebody, is to forge your own path and to figure out what it means to you and do that.
I'm going to answer your question, Mark. I'm not going to skirt it. No, I think the best advice for people is they truly better love the industry and know exactly what they're getting into, because I think some people look at it and say, gosh, it's a fast-growing segment. I want to be there. Let's follow the puck. There's some money there. And I think invariably, I don't think it usually ends up well for those folks, because I think it's an incredibly tough industry. People want great experiences, and I think great experiences are made by great people with passion, right? If I could give people free tickets to a movie that wasn't very good, or they'd have to pay $10 to go to a movie that was great, without naming movies, I think that they'd all take the $10 deal. It's the same thing with entertainment. And now, by the way, entertainment is free. You can download games for free. So people should get into it because it is their passion, because they love it. They want to make something great. If they're looking just for a 9-to-5 job that they can kind of pay the bills with and enjoy other pursuits, it's probably not the best job for them. It's very demanding. It changes. It's cyclical. It's very stressful. There's a lot of challenges with it, but at the same time, incredibly rewarding if you can kind of thread the needle and deliver something great. So know what you're getting into.
Well, John gives me $5 for every intern I send him, and he opened up a place in Coral Gables.
And I still have the $5, James.
And he's got a dungeon underneath. He just rattles their cage. So I met with like 3 kids yesterday, 3 people from FIU, and I go based upon age and the energy that I feel with them. So I put on my Confucius hat. And the young ones, I just say, listen, get ready to eat gravel. really, and you have to love it. Exactly what John just said. It's got to come from here. Pretty much for anything you do, even the app developer, it's like you have to do it because you really want to help people out there. We're here on this planet to open our hearts and to love and to serve. So if you're doing that through games, lucky you, but you're going to start at the bottom of his shoe and work your way up. But it's going to be like, licking heaven all the way up there. So, get ready to dine in hell, but you will get there. And my mom used to say to me, she'd come to my house and see like 50 games on the walls and just roll her eyes going, when are you ever going to get a real job? And I'm just like, what the hell, Mom? I'm making money. But I got her. She lives in San Diego. And I said, hey, Mom, you want to come see one of my clients? So she shows up at this big place in San Francisco. She walks through the door. She's seeing some things that are familiar. And she sees Yoda and Darth Vader. And I got a picture of me and my mom looking at me like this. And it's on my phone. So when she calls, it's just glory. Just glory. Because Darth Vader, I got a picture of Darth Vader, her, and me, because George Lucas was my customer for many years, loved me, and allowed me to do the whole tour up there. And they all started, every one of those producers, as just a shoe scrubber. The guys that worked for John in the Dungeons, they all started there, and they all started making all the Star Wars games about 3, 4, 5 years later.
So James, we're going to have to leave you with the last word. Mark, thank you for such a great panel. Let's give him a strong round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.